speaking of really cool people out there in the world, let's see what our next caller has to say. We have Chase, who's calling in from the USA. Chase, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
What is happening? Thanks for having me. I'm a big fan of the show.
Oh, thank you so much. That's awesome.
Hell yeah, Chase. What's going on today? How can we help you?
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about where art and activism converge, you know, because I've done a lot of different forms of activism for human rights and animal rights, you know, anywhere from polite conversations like one-on-one stuff to, you know, protesting in the streets. I helped lead a march of like 1,000 people. That was really cool through San Francisco, you know, and drums banging and all that. It's a real fun environment. And then there's, you know, behind the camera, if you will, you know, just crunching numbers, helping, like you were saying earlier, like donating to charities or helping an organization run, you know, and stay on their feet, things like that. But one of the things I really care about is art and activism. And there's a lot of different types of art, you know, and so I do some singing, you know, some songwriting, and then I also am writing a screenplay about the animal rights movement. And so, you know, that takes up a lot of time. But then there's also, you know, just making memes to spread awareness on the internet, you know, or I'm thinking, you know, doing like a spoken word at your local coffee shop or something. You know, there's so many different things we can do. And I'm wondering if you guys have any thoughts about art and activism.
Definitely. Yeah, I think I have a few things to say about that, but Ben, I want to throw it to you again first because, you know, I feel like this is your bread and butter, honestly.
Yeah, for whatever reason, we're getting a bunch of stuff that's right in my wheelhouse, which no complaints. But Chase, I think you're right on the ball. There's so many different ways. I think I mentioned diversity of tactics, diversity of means. If you're an artistic person, there's some of the best art that's ever been created has come out of adversity and from resistance. There's profound history associated with that, from inspiring people to helping just keep yourself sane and stable through difficult times. I think what's most immediately coming to mind is the giant quilt that was built during the AIDS epidemic and what that meant to so many people and so many victims during those trying times. Yeah, I love what you're doing. I think that's a great way to engage in trying to inspire and help people.
You know, it's interesting you bring that up, Ben, about the AIDS epidemic, because I was thinking about, gosh, I can't remember the name of the piece, but it's the piece about the stopped clock. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where a man who had his partner who died during the AIDS epidemic, is the time on the clock was set to the point where his partner died, and there's another clock that kept going, right? And the symbolism there, if it's not obvious, is okay, well, you know, even though this person who is taking at the same time, you know, stop, you know, the other clock has to keep on going, it has to move on. I found that to be a personally poignant piece, but, you know, I'm also looking back at that moment because I, you know, wasn't really there at the height of that, right? It wasn't something I was aware of, obviously, because of my age, but like, you know, I get to see that as a cultural relic of the time in which the events take place, right? And I think that's something interesting to be said about activism and movements in general, is that the pieces that we make, particularly artistic ones, are not only helpful for the present, but they're helpful for the future when people look back and want to understand the thoughts, the impact, the stories that people had when they talk about their fights in these individual movements. So there's, you know, forces beyond our understanding that that are happening here in some ways, right? There's a lot of work that gets put into this that we may not always see the full fruit of, but still we have to plant the trees for the future generations there. So I'm glad that you're into that kind of work, Chase.
Right on. Well, it's good to hear your all's thoughts on that. Are either of you artistic in any kind of way, or?
Not
well.
I try.
I do podcasting. I don't know if that's really artful. I am a violinist. I don't know if I've ever actually played on the air ever, but I did do church. I have an electric violin that I played for my church, so that was a thing. But no, I mean, besides impromptu speech making, and taking calls. I don't know if that counts, but that's about it for me.
I mean, wordsmithing and being able to write scripts and stuff is important, and it's artistic.
Sure.
Yeah, I think your skill of public speaking is a great form of art and activism, and I remember I used to be terrified of public speaking back when I was in college, but I just forced myself to do it anyways because I knew I had a message, to get out, and so my palms were sweaty, and all that. I'm not gonna.
Knees weak, arms are heavy. Yeah, understood.
But for real, like I could barely breathe, and but nowadays, I've done public speaking so many times that so long as it's an issue that I'm familiar with and I know what I'm talking about, then I can go off the cuff and just talk all day long and with no hesitation or fear or anything. So I just encourage people to don't underestimate yourself, believe in yourself, you can do it, and take a class if you need to, or just practice in front of the mirror and some friends around,
Yes, I like that. I appreciate the compliment there, Chase. I appreciate those who are. I'm friends with some YouTubers who are really great at writing out scripts and their thoughts and stuff, and I am just not as good at that kind of thing. So I am always jealous of the types that do that kind of work because my stuff is mostly live streaming kind of stuff. And I'll tell you this too. Here's a story for you. Because I know Vern is in the studio right now. Okay. So, these were released a while back, but before Truth Wanted got started, we did some practice shows. We did about 5 or 6 practice shows, if I remember. And it was just for me to kind of practice even getting into doing this stuff and kind of figuring out what the show's kind of overall vibe was going to be. And I thought I did pretty good. Vern, I remember like a couple of years ago telling me, do you remember those first couple times you did it? Man, you sucked, but you got a lot better at it. So, like there is a practice that sometimes needs to be had there to get good at this stuff, but anybody can do it. Anybody can do the kind of, activism work that they feel they want to, even if you don't feel like you can do it right now, if it's writing or if it's, public speaking or whatever. Sometimes it just does really take practice. So that's my TED talk. Thank you for coming to that. Anyway.
Yeah, and I think the point that people miss when people are like, oh, you just got to practice, is practice isn't just to like perfect a thing. It's also to get you just comfortable and used to a thing. And like that's so vital for being able to do it, especially doing public performance and work. I said I was not artistic. I did play the trumpet and actually started college on a scholarship to play the trumpet. And I remember that like just go out and be in front of people. If you're uncomfortable with talking, the practice is just going out and doing it. Go talk to strangers, go to live events and things like that. And like Chase did, go up there and just stand and just say your piece and go out there and try to get comfortable in those spaces.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good thoughts all around.
And last thing I'll say is like, you might want to bust out that violin, Dan, at a protest, because I could see that happening.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I have to think about it. Do I want to hear some random guy playing a violin at a protest? I don't know. But yeah, it's a thought.
There's atonal music, Dan.
Yeah, because then it's like in this day and age, it's like, okay, is this guy just like filming himself for like his YouTube channel? You know what I mean? And he just wants a set piece. Like, what's happening here? It's hard to gauge people's intentions with that kind of stuff. But I'll think about it, Chase. I'll think about it. Right, thanks for calling in, Chase. Any last thoughts before we let you go?
Nope. Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Yeah, keep up the good work, man.
Yeah. Love Chase. Have had conversations with Chase before, and man, Chase is in it to win it. Let me tell you, there are some people who are absolutely so dedicated and so passionate to the activism work that they do, and Chase is one of those people. Every time I talk to him, man, that is his thing. That's what he's about, and so really cool knowing that there's folks out there that aren't that, because I think it's cool.
There's so many inspirational people in that space. I can't count the number of people, both religious and not, that have inspired me to be a better person and inspired me to get more involved or stick with it when it's 100 degrees in Texas and I can think of nothing other than air conditioning. There's so many people that are incredibly talented, like Chance doing all of this art, like that matters so much to people. I'm reminded of being in the Texas Capitol during the last legislative cycle, and folks had come together and made a 2-story tall banner calling for trans rights. And I remember when it got unfurled, they ended up getting taken down. I think we all got kicked out of the Capitol that day. But in that moment, when you're sitting there dealing with, I think it was Moms for Liberty at the time, or a similar group, seeing that unfurled it's motivational and uplifted so many of us. And then photos in the newspaper came out of that, and it was just an amazing thing to be a part of. And I could never paint a thing. A long time ago, I could play the trumpet, but painting was never my deal. And so folks that can do that kind of stuff, so amazing.
Yeah, agreed. So artists out there, keep doing your art. We want to see it, especially for a good cause.